Welcome to the Off the Charts Football Podcast. I'm Matt Manocherian, former NFL scout and currently director of football and research at Sports Info Solutions, joined by Aaron Schatz, the godfather of football analytics and the founder of Football Outsiders. As always, we've got Justin Stein with us on the controls, and John Verros will be on later with his injury insights. But for us right now, it's all about the most important games of this week. Aaron, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing well. We keep breaking down how many teams are in the playoff race. Each week, fewer teams are in the race, so we've got fewer games to choose from when we look at the most important games of the week. But that's the spirit. That's the spirit of the fun, man. We whittle it down until we get to the playoffs, and then we lay it out.
Yeah, as the season goes on, we get more and more most important games for Super Bowl odds and fewer of the most important games for playoff odds.
Right.
So let's lead it off and let's get right into things. I think the playoff race is shaping up in both conferences on the top end, especially at this point. But in the AFC, there's one game this week that I think both teams with wild card hopes, potentially division hopes. What do you got for us there?
Yeah, there's really only one game this week that holds a lot of playoff leverage for both teams as far as actually making it to the postseason. And that is Tennessee at Oakland, two teams you are probably not paying much attention to. Oakland is basically, this is do or die. They are in the playoffs 25% of the time if they win, 1% if they lose. Tennessee, 67% if they win this game, 30% with a loss. They are in competition for both the AFC South title and the second wild card in the AFC, so this game is very important to them.
Yeah, so here this matchup, I think we have one team, the Raiders, that kind of teased us a few weeks ago and had people thinking, oh, maybe they're better than we think they are, and they've kind of come back down to earth. And it feels to me like the Titans are right in one of those spells. A lot of people are starting to buy. They're starting to latch on, thinking Ryan Tannehill might be legit, that it was just being held back by the Dolphins all those years and / the Titans being held back by Mariota. But I don't know. I'm thinking that we're going to see a few weeks from now, the Titans might be just shaping up doing what the Raiders were doing to us a few weeks ago. I don't really think they're for real. What's your take here?
Well, I mean, the improvement is dramatic. The offense under Tannehill has gone from 29th in DVOA with Mariota to second behind only Baltimore since Tannehill took over. I don't think that Tannehill can continue this for the rest of the year because, I mean, I think you have to consider what he's done in the past. This is one of those sort of great backup quarterback runs like Damon Heward had for Kansas City like about 10 years ago, where he had an amazing half season that was completely out of place with the rest of his career. I think that's what's going on with Tannehill, although there are, some film watchers who were always bigger fans of Tannehill than the numbers expressed. Both film room guy Derek Klassen and our former film room guy Kian Fahey were both felt that Tannehill was better with Miami than his numbers expressed, and that he was sort of limited by the offense around him. So, maybe he is better than that, but he can't possibly be this good over the long term. I mean, he's not the second best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, another Football Outsiders alum, Ben Baldwin. I saw his stat, completion percentage over expectation. Ryan Tannehill ranking first in that stat this year. But I think when you kind of dig behind the scenes, I don't think it's been crazy what's going on there. Number one, Derrick Henry's been going on there. Just like he finished the season last year on an outstanding run. Man, it makes it easier to play quarterback when you got that going.
He's improved dramatically. In the same time since Tannehill took over, the running game has also gone from one of the worst in the league to one of the best in the league.
When people talk about complementary football, they're usually talking about offense and defense, but it's certainly complementing each other's skill sets. Henry and Tannehill both making each other look a little bit better than they've been in situations where they've been in the past. Here's Tannehill's rank in terms of clean pocket. He ranks 5th out of 38 qualifying quarterbacks in terms of non-hurried, non-sacked dropbacks. And, usually look at clean pocket performance as very predictive. Now, it's still in the small sample size zone, so it's not at the point where we're going to say he's going to be a great clean pocket quarterback forever. But I think part of what's going on is that because of the presence of Derrick Henry, we've seen more clean pocket from Tannehill, and we've seen him actually perform pretty well against a lot of this man coverage that they're seeing, a lot of the heavy boxes that they're seeing, and some of the really good receivers that the Titans actually have.
Yeah, definitely A.J. Brown has really shown up.
Awesome.
Since Tannehill became the starting quarterback, he's doing better this year than Corey Davis. Who's the veteran at this point, but Corey Davis has never quite lived up to his.
He's a sexy route runner now. So I love me some Corey Davis, and I'm excited about what he can potentially do in a competent pass offense.
It's still potential. Like, we've been waiting for the potential for years now, and I've been waiting for it to come out.
And just 62% on targets this year, 31 receptions for 50 catches. So far this year. Obviously, some of that's been on the quarterback play, but just 18 receiving points earned for him this year. Not exactly lighting the world on fire.
Oakland, I will say, is pretty terrible against wide receivers. Daryl Worley is a little bit better than Trayvon Mullen as far as their cornerbacks. And Garyon Conley, who was struggling so much for them in the first part of the year, was, of course, traded to Houston. So I think this is a good game for the wide receivers of the Tennessee Titans. And it's also probably an interesting game for Dion Lewis, who hasn't done that much this year, but the Raiders are 29th in DVOA against running backs in the passing game.
Yep, and flip it on the other side of the ball. Derek Carr, what a funny career that he's had. I still don't think I really know what to make of him at this point. He was kind of a middling prospect coming out who probably ended up being the best quarterback, or he's had the best career so far of anybody that came out of his class, certainly ahead of Manziel and Bortles and Bridgewater at this point. But it's always been short throws down the field. There was the time when he was good with Amari Cooper, and then Cooper seemed to need a change of scenery to really resuscitate his career. He's 36 out of 37 quarterbacks with a minimum of 100 attempts in intended air yards. So 6.5 average intended air yards per throw. However, when he throws the ball at least 10 yards down the field, he's ranked 4th out of the 32 qualifying quarterbacks in success rate. So it's with Derek Carr, it's just, please throw it down the field, because it's not a thing that it's shown. He's got all the arm strength to do it, but whatever it is, this guy becomes check down Charlie sometime, and it hurts their offense.
And this may be the game for him to do it, because the Titans, Malcolm Butler is out for the year, and Adoree Jackson had a knee injury last week and left the game in the middle. There's no word yet on whether he can play this week, but they may be out their top two their outside cornerbacks. Logan Ryan is good, but he's essentially a slot corner. So this could be a really nice game to throw it downfield to Tyrell Williams and finally get a big Tyrell Williams game like we keep, they keep expecting Tyrell Williams. They brought him in to be the deep threat. When are we going to see it? Well, this could be the game for that.
Yeah, it seems so simple. All right. Let's keep it moving ahead. What do you have for us in terms of the biggest games for Super Bowl odds?
Well, there are a couple of really huge games for the Super Bowl with great Super Bowl contenders. The first one is San Francisco at New Orleans. New Orleans makes the Super Bowl 39% of simulations where they win, 29% when they lose. San Francisco, 31% where they win, 20% where they lose. I went and looked over these two teams, and there are some elements of these two teams where you get a little bit of the two Spidermen pointing at each other. Both teams are in the top 5 in the gap between play action and not play action. San Francisco is 2.8 yards better with play action. New Orleans, 3.4 yards better with play action. Both offenses are in the top 8 in broken tackles, but both defenses are in the top 5 in fewest broken tackles. So it's strength against strength when it comes to being elusive on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up how they become similar, because if you think about what you think about with the Saints historically, you think offense, and the Niners are all defense this year. And yet at the same time, you point out a lot of ways that they're actually kind of eerily similar to each other.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco is better on defense, certainly, and New Orleans is better on offense. But these teams are both actually well balanced. San Francisco is 9th on offense by DVOA, 2nd on defense behind the Patriots. New Orleans is 5th on offense, 7th on defense. They both have above average special teams. So both teams are very well balanced. I mean, obviously San Francisco is tilted more towards defense, and obviously New Orleans has the better quarterback. But these teams are more alike than I think people realize.
So this game made me think about story time just from back in the day a little bit, because back when I was with the Saints was probably the last time that the Saints and the Niners were both good. The Niners had a quarterback named Colin Kaepernick on their team. They had a coach named Jim Harbaugh.
I remember those guys.
It seems like such a long time ago. I wonder what those guys are up to these days. But I thought of the game because I thought about, man, it was one of those things where if they were going to play in our house, we felt like we were going to crush them every time. Like there was no way they were going to come into New Orleans on the track and beat us there. And by the same token, when we were out in their house in the wind out there, it felt like Breeze had no chance. So looking at this game in New Orleans, I really think it's a huge advantage for the Saints. And I think looking at home field advantage and how that's going to play out going into January is just so colossal in both leagues now. With the Patriots falling into some home field jeopardy now too, that's really interesting, and that's the sort of thing that I think really can move the needle when we get to January. But I did want to give a quick little story time because it was just a funny thing. We played the Niners, I think it was 2012. The Saints and the Niners, we played in the preseason, and usually, there's really no blitzing in the preseason, or you tone it down, and the coaches will kind of talk to each other beginning of the week to know what you're going to expect. And Coach Payton and Coach Harbaugh had a thing where they didn't communicate well, and it ended up being a thing where Coach Payton gave Greg Williams the green light to go blitz the pants off of the Niners. And Harbaugh couldn't have been more pissed off. You could see the steam coming out of his ears the whole game. And it was a terrible preseason game. It wasn't good for anybody what happened. But, of course, we ended that season by playing that game in San Francisco and losing the playoff game. Jimmy Graham making a great play down the end. And then Alex Smith and Vernon Davis.
Yeah, that was the Vernon Davis pass. Yep.
Yeah. Fun memories back then. And then I remember the combine the following year. I saw Jim Harbaugh, and I was doing seat saving for the weigh-ins. And he came and he tried to take one of the seats that I was saving. And so I said, "Hey, coach, you can't sit there." I'm sitting. I was like, "Yeah, no, this seat wasn't saved. I'm good to sit here." He just told me. So he was a big shot, sat down right in where the seat that I had been saving. So I, of course, in my young idiocy, decided to sit down right next to him and not back down. And we had a good conversation about how they went on to lose going on that year and how we would have beaten the Giants. I guess it was 2011, so January 2012, how we would have beaten the Giants. And he said, "Oh, I know you guys would have beaten the Giants, but, we beat you, so that's how it was." A little bit of smack talking at the combine weigh-ins a few months later.
Well, it's good to get this rivalry going again then. I don't know if there's quite as much smack now between Peyton and Shanahan, but
yeah, seems doubtful. Seems doubtful on that one, but hopefully there's somebody there that can have fun in this one. So,
I will say, speaking of blitzing a lot, San Francisco and New Orleans, another way that they're similar is that they both are really good in not allowing pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, Breeze makes some of that himself by constantly getting rid of the ball quickly, and he's always, no matter who the offensive linemen are, Breeze has always had a low sack rate and a low pressure rate. But both of these teams are really good at preventing pressure by the defense.
Yep. And then you look at Cam Jordan, you look at Nick Bosa, and what do you call that? The immovable force. That is one of those matchups.
Well, they're both irresistible forces. Unfortunately, we don't get to see them go up against each other. That would be interesting, but that's not how football works. It's really actually surprising if you look at the pressure rate numbers. New Orleans is much higher than San Francisco on pressure rate. San Francisco has a below average pressure rate, which is shocking given how we think of their defense. But as good as that defensive line is, when it comes to actual pressures per pass play, when they do bring pressure, they get home. But when it comes to actual pressures per pass play, they're actually a little bit below average. New Orleans is, I believe, at the top of the league.
Yeah, and the guy that's crushing it for them is Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan, over 30 points saved each of the last 3 seasons. This year, he's got 21 through 12 games, trying to get to that 30-point threshold for the fourth straight season, and he's doing it 13 and a half sacks, 57 hurries with 22 quarterback hits and 7 knockdowns for 67 total plays with pressure so far this year. So right in line with where he's been the last few years as a pass rusher. He's really getting it done for them.
The other stat that, looking through stats preparing for this game, really surprised me is that Eli Apple has better coverage stats than Marshawn Lattimore. And you wouldn't expect that, especially when you watch New Orleans game last week, right? That they, in the middle of the game, they took Lattimore and they switched it to where they originally had Calvin Ridley being covered by Apple, and then they switched it to Lattimore when Calvin Ridley was beating Apple. But for the season, Apple 7.5 yards per pass, 60% success rate. Lattimore 8.1 yards per pass and 51% success rate. And Lattimore has actually been targeted more than Apple. So it's a sort of interesting, unexpected stats. I mean, yes, Lattimore is normally covering the number one target, and the number one target is better and thrown to more often. But I'm still a little surprised to see the stats come out like that.
Yep, we're seeing Lattimore get targeted a little bit more this year than he's been in years past. And I think, he made a great rookie year first impression on us, 37 points saved for him that year. Targeted 73 times, 40 completions allowed, so just 55% completions against, 1 touchdown allowed against, 5 interceptions, and 14 total pass breakups. He was outrageous that year, but quietly not quite as strong last year. Same number of targets, allowed 7 more completions. Completion percentage went from 55 to 64%. Allowed over 10 yards per target last year. Just 12 total points saved. This year we see, again, just 7 total points saved this year. So he's been good. Certainly not a weak point for them back there, and he's solved a lot of their problems. But as I think teams have adapted to the Saints defense and they're starting to feel more comfortable targeting him a little bit more, those target stats aren't just coming out of nowhere. I think there's something really going on there.
All right, let's take a look at the second most important game for the Super Bowl. And as Sal Paolantonio would say, this is the most important game of the week because I'll be there. And that's Kansas City at New England. New England makes the Super Bowl 35% of simulations where they win this game, 25% where they lose. Kansas City, 15% where they win, 10% where they lose. The fact that even if Kansas City wins this game, New England still has a better chance to make the Super Bowl shows the gap in the win-loss records right now between Baltimore and New England at the top, and then Kansas City and Houston as the likely 3-4 seeds, where it's unlikely that those seeds are going to jump into the 1-2. It looks pretty assured that Baltimore and New England are going to be the 1 and the 2 in some order right now, with Baltimore ahead.
So you mentioned Sal Paolantonio, and I have to say the one thing I've noticed every Sunday that he does on Countdown is he gets a text from Doug Peterson. It's without fail every week. You will hear the I got a text from Doug Peterson this morning, and he was telling me. So I might need to hear you start saying that.
Steve Belichick. I got a text from Steve Belichick.
Yeah, that good-looking man that he is. No, so let's talk about the game. And you say that the Patriots are much. The record is better than the Chiefs, but everybody's talking about it, so I want to get your take on it. You are the Patriots expert. What is your take on Tom Brady right now?
There's no question that Brady is in decline. We all talked about the fact that older quarterbacks tend to fall off a cliff, and I don't think we were necessarily prepared for Brady to not do that, to decline slowly, not quickly.
And when you look at it, how much do you think is supporting cast, and how much do you think is Tom Brady? Most quarterback statistics we talk about are taking into account really the whole passing offense. So
I think it's some of one and some of the other. I think it's a combination of both the issues and not as much the quality of his receivers. As much as his amount of time that he's had to practice with them, right? I mean, Mohamed Sanu just showed up 3 or 4 weeks ago. N'Keal Harry, and has been injured. N'Keal Harry just got off IR 3 or 4 weeks ago. So he hasn't had time to build that trust level with his receivers. And, of course, he has almost nothing at tight end. So I think it's a combination of Brady himself declining. He's thrown the ball away this year more than any other quarterback in the league. You see plays where he just gives up on a play and crumples to the ground. On the other hand, look, I keep beating this drum. The Patriots offense is better than people think it is. People think the Patriots have collapsed, and they've only collapsed in comparison to themselves and the record that they had in previous years. Right now, even if we use weighted DVOA, which lowers the strength of the early games, like the really good game they had against Pittsburgh in week 1, New England still comes out 15th in the league in weighted offense. Okay? This is not a bad offense. This is an average offense. This is an offense that's in the same territory as teams like the Chargers and the Lions. And we're not used to the Patriots offense being in that territory. But it's not a bad offense. A bad offense is Pittsburgh. A bad offense is Cincinnati, the Jets, Washington. Those are really bad offenses. What the Patriots have right now is an average, maybe even slightly above average offense. It's just not what we're used to.
I really agree with you. I think you said that really well. A few statistics that I think kind of tease out the difference a little bit between Tom Brady and his performance versus the performance of the passing game that I think kind of support what you're saying about this potentially really being a Brady-related drop as much as it is about the current people around him. So we look at stats like success rate. When you looked in 2018, the Patriots pass offense, according to our positive percent, he was up at 52%, which was 8th in the NFL. They were up on passing plays this year, down to 46%, 22nd in the NFL, which I think matches that they've struggled a bit this year in terms of that. But then in terms of the Brady specific stats, on target rate, he was up at 77% last year, which was 16th. This year, down to 72%, which is 27th. Again, IQR, which really tries to strip out and look at really on aimed passes only, how well is the quarterback performing, right? We're removing dropped interceptions, and when we're removing drops by the receivers, we're also getting rid of throwaways, and we're looking at when actually on aimed passes, he went from 108 last year, 8th in the NFL, down to 95 this year, which is 23rd in the NFL. So I think it's actually real when you look at it and you see there are certain things that Brady is not performing to his normal standard on. I think that's very fair to say. Now,
and your numbers also, if I could just interrupt quickly, back up what I said about this being a slow decline. He wasn't first or second in the league in IQR last year. He was 8th. He wasn't first or second in the league in on-target percentage. He was 16th. You already saw the beginning of the decline last year. This is just more of it. Because he's not off a cliff, he's declining slowly.
And throw in the Gronk catalyst or the lack of Gronk catalyst.
The lack of Gronk is a big deal.
And then total points earned, which we know we're trying to limit out there and actually look at the individual player versus the performance of the whole team. And I think really this matches a couple of points that you were trying to make. He was at 4th last year in total points earned per play, 0.14 per play in terms of passing total points earned. This year down to 0.09 per play, which is 14th in the NFL. Again, not the worst quarterback in the NFL. Tom Brady isn't somebody who can't play football any longer, but we do see a decline in his performance, and that decline does coincide with an offense that's been in decline a little bit from where we've seen it in years past. But this is not a cliff situation. This is, as you've mentioned, both something that's been kind of happening over time and also not as end of the world as everybody's making it out to be.
Now, the danger in this game for the Patriots offense is Kansas City is number 1 in DVOA against number 1 receivers. Now, how that impacts covering Edelman, who is not a conventional outside number 1 receiver, I really can't be sure. But obviously, right now, Edelman is the only receiver that Brady truly trusts. And if Kansas City concentrates their coverage on him, then you can't just go to him all the time. On the other hand, this is where the Patriots finally get their running game back on track. They have Isaiah Wynn back now at left tackle. The Chiefs are 30th in DVOA against the run. Like if the Patriots want to establish that they're a running power run team, which they really even last year weren't as much as people thought they were really running more once they had a lead, not early in games. But if they want to run, this is the game for them to run.
Yeah, and Total Points will tell you the same thing. In terms of run defense points saved, we have the Chiefs dead last in the league. We've got 30 teams with a positive number of points saved from a run defense perspective. It tends to be a good thing for your defense when the opponent chooses to run, but two teams in the negatives, the Dolphins at -9 points saved in the run defense game this year, the Chiefs -29 points saved in the run game this year. So that could really be the elixir that the Patriots run game is looking for. They're the only team that have allowed better than a 50% positive play rate on the run defense side this entire season.
Right. DVOA shows the same thing, right? If you know about how total DVOA works, it includes all plays. And since passes are more efficient than runs, almost every team will have a better defense against the pass than they do against the run. There are a couple of exceptions. On one hand, New England and San Francisco, because their pass defenses are so good, it's actually more efficient to run against them than it is to pass against them. On the other hand, Carolina and Kansas City, because their run defenses are so bad, it's more efficient to run against them than it is to pass against them.
Love that stat. And I think that's something, we're seeing it with the Ravens, the way that they're doing it with the run game this year. A lot of times we as analysts have a tendency to compare how efficient an average pass play is versus how efficient an average run play is. I'm wondering if it might make more sense to think about it in terms of if you reach a certain efficiency level with your run game, it doesn't really matter how efficient you get with the pass game as much because there's only 10 yards for a first down.
Right. So, if you can get 5 yards per carry, you're often getting a first down before you even get to third down.
But that's not 7 yards per attempt like you're going to get throwing the ball.
But it is constantly moving the chains.
So where does that number have to be? Does it have to be 6 yards per attempt in order to have it? Does it have to be 5 yards per attempt? I think it's interesting not just to look at the difference between run and pass efficiency, but also to look at it compared to kind of what level of efficiency you need and whether or not you're above or below that threshold, a la success rate.
There's three defenses this year that you're getting enough, I think, running the ball that you can keep running the ball. And that's Kansas City, Jacksonville, and Carolina. And the thing is, Kansas City and Carolina are actually pretty good against the pass, though. Kansas City is sixth in our numbers against the pass. Like that may sound crazy, but they've got really good coverage this year. It's not pass pressure because Kansas City is only 22nd in pressure rate on defense, but it's the coverage has actually been really good this year. And so, they've got Tyrann Mathieu now at safety.
Did you see the interception that he made last week?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a play there. I mean, playing in man coverage on the slot, managing to come off of his receiver before the ball even was thrown. It was Ed Reed. It was straight up Ed Reed what he did back there.
The other side of the ball, of course, is just a huge amount of strength against strength. I will kind of, I don't normally quote Boston sports radio, but I thought this actually was a reasonable take here. Tony Maserati, I was listening to him yesterday on my way to Starbucks.
Fantastic name, by the way. I don't live in Boston, so I don't get to hear Tony Maserati.
Tony Maz said, the Patriots defense, the way that they emphasized coverage, the way they went out and added Jamie Collins to get faster at linebacker, they are built to beat Kansas City. They are built to stop the Kansas City offense. They know that Kansas City scored a bunch of points on them last year in 2 games. The goal of this Patriots defense, we know the Patriots defense is not built to beat Baltimore. And they're not built to beat Houston. But his idea was they're built to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They're built to beat the Stephon Gilmore probably covering Kelsey and then doubling the fast receivers, doubling Hill. That's what they're built to beat. And it's a really great strength against strength matchup. Kansas City goes shotgun 78% of the time. The Pats are one of the rare defenses that's actually better against the shotgun. The biggest danger for the Pats is they're only 21st against running back as receivers. And we know that Kansas City, the last 3-4 times they've played the Patriots, have just whipped the Patriots with passes to running backs. It was always Kareem Hunt. In the playoff game last year, their offense finally started going once they finally started passing to Damian Williams. I know there's questions of who's going to play running back for Kansas City this week, But those passes to the running back that Andy Reid is so good at designing are a real danger for the Patriots.
All I'm looking for in this game with Mahomes on one side and Stephon Gilmore on the other side is a nice bag of popcorn, because it's going to be fun to watch, especially, I think, when the Chiefs have the ball.
I wonder if, given what happened with the Patriots against Baltimore and Houston, it makes more sense for Mahomes to maybe run out of the pocket a little more than he's used to doing, because we know he can do it.
Right. And like we've talked about, there's a difference between the way the way Watson and Lamar Jackson play, Jackson being much more the designed runs, but both guys being the mobile guys have given the Patriots trouble. It's not like Mahomes can't run with the thing. He'd rather stay back there and throw it. I think even more so than those other guys would.
I will also point out pace stats are interesting for this game, because the Patriots defense being so good, you think lower scoring. The Chiefs offense being so good, you think higher scoring. Pace stats would suggest the idea of higher scoring. The Patriots are number 1 in situation neutral pace, and Kansas City is number 5.
Interesting. So even with the Patriots, we think of them as more of a running team and all that kind of stuff. They're still actually they're number 1, you're saying, in situation neutral pace.
Yeah. So I would think even if the Patriots defense plays well, I think they're still going to give up a lot of points, because I think this is going to be a little bit of a track meet, and they may be able to stop the track meet some, but they're not going to stop it all the way.
Oof, I don't know. I think there's some case to be made here that the Patriots could grind this one out. And I think if you're the Patriots, you want to win this game if the Patriots win, it's because they had the ball for 35 minutes.
They may slow down the pace that they normally play by. That is true.
So I would think that'd be if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm doing everything I can to not get into a track meet in this one, because I think if the game's on those terms, I think it's good for Andy Reid and the Chiefs.
One thing also I'll point out, Kansas City has a tendency to have its stats drop in the fourth quarter. So if they get ahead, their leads are not necessarily safe.
Interesting. Sounds like you're looking into some betting on this game.
I'm not looking into some betting, but if people who listen to me are in places where betting is legal and would like to, I'm not doing any of it myself. I'm just looking into what's interesting about one of the more interesting games of the weekend, and the one that I will be attending.
And for more of Aaron's thoughts, you can find him at footballoutsiders.com, on Twitter at FO_A Shots, and at FB Outsiders. Let's take a quick break and hear about some SIS's betting website, sisbets.com, and then we will come back in with John Verros' injury insights before we sign out and get out of here.
Hi, I'm Corey March of Sports Info Solutions, and I'm here to tell you about sisbets.com. sisbets.com is an advanced prop betting information tool powered by Sports Info Solutions. Now you can leverage our proven projections model to find value against the odds. You're never more than a few clicks away from knowing which pitcher may surpass his strikeout prop, or whether your favorite running back projects to go over his rushing yards total. Just choose the type of bet, the player, and enter the money line to see the SIS Bets recommendation. That's sisbets.com.
All right, up next, we have John Verros for his injury insights. John, what do you have for us this week?
So this week I have a couple of fantasy football running back studs to talk about, and I think we should start with the more prominent of the two in Dalvin Cook, who sprained the SC joint or sternoclavicular joint in his right shoulder this past week.
Yeah, he plays reality football too, and I think that affected him some. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so in reality football back in week 11, Derek Wolfe, when they were playing the Broncos, landed on him really hard near the goal line, and Dalvin came out of the game after that hit. And over the bye week in week 12, Dalvin was actually on the injury report for a chest injury, and that lingered into week 13, where he ended up getting hit by Jadeveon Clowney just before halftime. And I don't know if he re-aggravated it or just felt the pain of a pre-existing injury. But either way, he came out of the game with some significant pain and attempted to come back after halftime, fumbled for the second time in the game. And then after that, he sat on the bench the rest of the game, just sort of as a spectator.
All right, I'm no doctor, but I'm going to read into this. Sternoclavicular. You're saying that's connecting his sternum to his clavicle, so kind of the top of your rib cage there?
Yes, exactly. The ligament is what he sprained, the piece that holds the clavicle to the sternum.
So I can imagine how as a running back that would make it really difficult to get your usual points of contact in there, pressing the ball against your chest. High and tight might be a bit uncomfortable.
Exactly, especially with high and tight right there, because what the SC joint is particularly involved in is elevation and depression of the shoulder, or your shoulder is going up and down. So when you're trying to hold the ball high and tight, your shoulder's coming up with it, and that's causing pain. You saw Dalvin coming off the field, kind of twisting his arm and trying to loosen up his shoulder, expressing that he had a lot of pain with that exact movement. So going forward, I think he's going to try and play this week. It's going to be very painful, and he's going to be turnover prone. So it might be more of the Alexander Madison show instead of what we're used to seeing, which is Dalvin Cook leading the way.
I can't remember what running back it was. Somebody with the Packers used to always carry the ball only in his left hand, something like that. I wonder if Dalvin Cook could try kind of like a similar strategy, just even though, you want to carry it in your outside hand, all that stuff's fine and well, but maybe you should just carry it in your hand that doesn't have a sprained SC joint.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea there, although maybe things like stiff-arming guys or kind of keeping yourself up on the ground is going to be difficult. Yeah, holding onto the ball is important in football.
All right. Well said. We got one more running back. You said you were going to talk about another fantasy stud. What can you tell us?
So Marlon Mack originally fractured his hand in week 11. He went and got surgery, and now they're talking about him possibly returning just 3 weeks after the surgery. It was a third metacarpal that he had fractured. I'm assuming they put some sort of hardware in there, whether it's pins or rods or plates, to try and make sure that bone is healing correctly, straight, as well as protect him when he does return. So it's going to be difficult for him to play through it. It's going to be very painful. He's not an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman who can just wear a cast or like a club and protect it. Similar to Dalvin, he's going to have to hold on to the football with his hand and make football moves. It's going to be very painful.
So that's not something they need to put into a cast or something like that? I thought he was going to be playing one-handed.
I don't think you can play running back one-handed. I think he's going to have some sort of protection on this thing. It's only been 3 weeks. I think it's going to be some sort of a padding or something to shield and protect the hand, but he's still going to have to use his wrist and fingers in order to hold onto the ball or catch the ball, especially even in pass pro. I mean, everything is going to hurt. He's going to have some sort of padding for protection there.
So maybe not a fantasy stud quite this week.
Yeah, exactly. It might just be him in there as a decoy. Maybe I don't know. I think it's a risky play.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, John. As always, how was your Thanksgiving, by the way?
Hey, I had a great Thanksgiving. Spent it with the lady and had some turkey and stuffing like always.
Wow, you spent it with Lady Liberty, Lady Madonna,
the lady back at home.
The lady back at home. Even better. All right. Thanks, John. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you for listening to this week's Off the Charts Football Podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and write us reviews. It's always very helpful to see those reviews. Keep those coming in. You can hit us up on Twitter at sportsinfo_SIS. I'm at Matt Mano. I just told you he's at FO_A Shots, and Sports Info Solutions is also on Instagram at Sports Info Solutions. For my co-host Aaron Schatz, our producer Justin Stein, our injury expert John Verros, and our researcher Bryce Rossler, I'm Matt Manocherian, and thank you for joining us for the latest episode of the Off the Charts Football Podcast.